That man yesterday was sick with hate. You have many, many people, thousands of people already in our country that are sick with hate. And people that are around him, Muslims, know who they are, largely. They know who they are. They have to turn them in.
That is Donald Trump speaking this morning on Fox and Friends. We'll share a little bit more of what he had to say during the course of the program today. If you are just crawling out from under a rock and you've been there over the weekend, you're likely learning of the horrific attack that took place in Orlando, Florida on early morning hours, about 2 a.m. Eastern time. It started yesterday morning, and we have roughly 50 people dead. I think the number is now pegged at 49 officially. Many more of these people are expected to pass on because of their terrible injuries that they have. So that death toll could go much higher in the course of the next few days. We have a battle going on right now. You've got the establishment media, which of course is in the pocket of Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton, if you will, and they are trying to spin this story. No, it has nothing to do with Islam. No, it never, ever happened. This is Eric Erickson writing at The Resurgent. I just pulled this off the printer minutes ago and raced in here to share some of what he is saying. Now, Erickson it's from his website. He is not a popular guy among the Trump clan because Erickson is the leader of the Never Trump movement. However, they're both in agreement about how the president of the United States right now, and of course the woman who'd like to succeed him, and the minions in the media are trying to portray it. Here is what they're saying at his Erickson's website. The shooter, Omar Mateen, was homophobic because he hated gays, according to the media. These are all the false narratives. Number 2, Mateen was unstable because he was mean and beat his wife. 3, Mateen had too much unfettered access to guns. 4, Mateen was not religiously motivated. Well, we're going to debunk most of that this morning, and we'll explain why over the course of the program. You have people who say, well, he saw 2 men kissing in Miami a couple of months ago, and therefore he wanted to take revenge on these people. Turns out a fellow who used to work with him as a security guard, one of his former co-workers, is now a police officer. And that fellow has said, and he's made it clear, he said, when I was working with him years ago, he didn't like homosexuals. And he spoke about, his rage about them all the time, all the way back then. Meanwhile, Mateen's father, just as he was entering the club in Orlando and began shooting the place up, his father posted a video. It's in a foreign language, one of the minor dialects, apparently, of Afghanistan. I don't know that it's been translated yet, but at the very same time, his father was posting a video. And in the video, his father is dressed in fatigues, rambling on about something. The father is also the former host of an anti-American television program. The father is also a former candidate for president of Afghanistan. So if they don't like it here, the question is, why were they here? We also know that there was a fellow who came to the Orlando area just a couple of months ago and suggested something like this should happen. That was a Muslim imam. We'll share a little bit of that this morning as well when we have the chance. This is from The Resurgent. That's Erickson's website. The Quran teaches that homosexuality is wrong and punishable by death. 2, many Muslim men are brought up and taught to beat their wives. 3, Mateen had a clean record, worked as a security guard, kept himself in excellent condition, and trained for his jihad. 4, the attack was absolutely religiously motivated. You didn't see Mateen attacking the Orlando Islamic Center, the mosque he attended, because he didn't like the people there. You didn't see the people with whom he worshipped calling the FBI or the local authorities to report him, acting weird, or talking about killing people. This morning, I happened to be listening to some of the ramblings on MSDNC's Morning Joe, the show for communist, godless America. And one of the fellows there said, no, he's just a lone wolf actor, and, these things are going to happen, and we need to better, of course, maintain our surveillance of lone wolf actors. He is a lone wolf actor because he was recruited by the bad guys for months. Not only ISIS, but Al-Qaeda and many of these other far-flung Islamic organizations have been recruiting these guys online, telling them that their problems are not caused by themselves, but these problems are caused by good old white Christian America, and by gays, and by women, and by anybody else they can think of, and recruiting them to go out and commit these heinous acts. So he responded to the online recruiting. And we've already been told he was known to the FBI and police for the last 3 years. For crying out loud, folks, this is obvious as the noses on our faces. And then the president yesterday calls it an act of terror and hate, and then starts rambling on about gun control. Well, I'll tell you something. This nightclub had a policy at the door. If you showed up and you were carrying a firearm, you had to surrender it at the checkpoint, and then they would tag it and hold on to it. You could pick it up as you leave. But near closing time, which was 2 a.m., they didn't do it. They had stopped every night by close to 2 a.m. because the club would close and people would leave. Well, if you were aware of that, let's say this fellow Mateen had been studying the situation, he would know that nobody inside could fire back at him, and he would also know that he could pretty much go in unmolested, armed himself at 2 o'clock in the morning. And therefore he did that. We should also note, even if you don't like homosexuals, there are likely people who were at that place because they have friends who invited them. They may have been straight Americans. People who were employed there, they may have been straight Americans. So for the group of you who doesn't like those people, let me remind you, they were just, frankly, mainly Americans there, and they are now dead or severely wounded. And I was thinking about this yesterday as we were watching all of the television coverage. Really, it was a terrible end to my weekend. I had a great start. I went off to visit the Alpine, Wyoming, beautiful little community. Went over by Palisades Reservoir, drove all that area Saturday, had a great time. Got up yesterday morning and woke up to all of this. And here's the thing. Those of you who are regular listeners to this program know that I have been warning about this for a long time. You will also know and remember that I have been warning that they are going to strike some of these groups, such as homosexuals in this country. There is a writer today at Breitbart, I believe his name is Milos Yiannoulis. It's a Greek name. He is apparently gay. He is also a conservative, and he said liberals decided that hugging the Muslims was more important than the safety of the gay Americans. And this is the result of all of that. Because they cannot bring themselves to realize the cancer that is Islam that is spreading around the world. 8:14, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. If someone in that club had been armed, they could have dropped this guy right away. Now, maybe he would have gotten 4 or 5. But the saddest part of yesterday, I think, was listening to the police officers telling the stories is they were in this nightclub, soaked in blood, corpses everywhere, in every direction, all over the dance floor. And they kept hearing cell phones going off. Those are family members who are trying to call and find out if their relative happened to be okay. So the police are trying to work amongst all of these corpses. They're trying to take some pictures and get what they need for evidence and do the collection. And they constantly hear the ringing of telephones. But again, there's nobody there to answer these telephones. So mothers, brothers, sisters, fathers are calling from home and they're trying to reach somebody and there's no answer, which likely confirmed to them their worst fears. All because this kid decided he doesn't like the United States. His dad doesn't like the United States. Why don't they just leave then? Why don't we actually offer them a ticket out? Why don't we provide the plane? And then if they change their mind flying over the Atlantic Ocean, they can always step out at 35,000 feet and walk the rest of the way. It's 56 right now. Our telephone number, if you'd like to reach the show, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Bill Colley again with you. Bernie Sanders speaking about this yesterday, speaking of communists across America and enemies of our own state. This is Bernie Sanders making his pitch for gun control.
We have got to do everything that we can to prevent guns from falling into the hands of people who should not have them. And that means expanding the instant background check. It means doing away with the gun show loophole. It means addressing the straw man provision. I think there is a wide consensus to move forward in that direction.
But we're not going to do anything about radical Islam. No. Curt Schilling, the legendary baseball pitcher, posted yesterday that it took him 2 months to get a concealed carry permit in Florida. 2 months. He's Curt Schilling, for crying out loud. Everybody knows who he is. 2 months. This hoodlum, Mateen, he had been cleared already because of his background in security. What were they supposed to do? And there's no, well, he was crazy. He may not have been crazy. We're just hearing that again from the White House and its spin machine. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Hey, good morning, Bill. The more these jihadis that Obama brings in by the hundreds of thousands, the more these attacks escalate. And the more they escalate, the more Obama and Hillary yell for our guns so we can't defend ourselves against them.
Well, there's the old line from the Greeks, molin labi.
Yep, absolutely.
Let him go door to door. When that screech owl Clinton shows up at your door, I see. This is the thing. How could they do this in this country? I heard Pat Buchanan say this a few months ago on the McLaughlin Group. We have nearly 400 million firearms in private hands in this country now. You realize that? Nearly 400 million. Now, how do you go collect all of those? Do you cut off the food supply and tell people trade in your guns for food? Well, they wouldn't dare do that, would they? Constitutionally, they couldn't get away with it. We say they wouldn't dare do it. But it all depends on who they're really in league with, I suppose. Coming up on 818, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. This is the big argument. Well, if we just look, they have gun control in France. Has this happened in France? Yes. They have gun control in Belgium. Has it happened in Belgium? Yes. They have gun control in Australia. Has this happened in Australia? Yes. The bad guys are going to get their hands on the firearms no matter what the laws happen to be. And these morons continue to insist that disarming law-abiding Americans is the route to go? I'm sorry, but I don't see the logic in that. And we have plenty of evidence around the world, tragic evidence, of what has happened when you've taken people's firearms away. It does not work that way. But yet they can't help themselves because they're so afraid of their own shadows. This is an Islamic terrorist attack. That's what it is, front and center. There's no other way to put this. And what they're trying to do, again, because they want to win this election so badly, they're willing to ignore this serious threat in order to claim it's guns and it's people with anti-gay attitudes. It's got nothing to do with that. But they are so desperate. They couldn't acknowledge it after San Bernardino. They can't acknowledge it now. If they are willing, well, we saw it as well in Libya with Benghazi. Oh, it's a film. It's got nothing to do with our incompetence, and we didn't go rescue those men. It's a film. Yeah, that's the ticket. And people died in riots all over the world after they said it was this film. But you know what? Barack Hussein Obama got himself 4 more years in office. So it's got nothing to do with blood all over the floor. It's all about maintaining that power for these drooling liberal Democrats. We've got more coming up. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. It's 58. More on this subject. Also, Randy Staples from Idaho Weekly Briefing will be joining us at 8:40 this morning. I made a reference to this a little earlier in the show, and I think it's getting some attention, at least in alternative media. That would be the 5%, maybe 3%, 1% that you'd call conservative media versus the establishment media, of course, which is in business to keep performing a daily Lewinsky on Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. 824, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. I'll get to what I'm talking about in a moment. It's an Islamic imam calling for the death of homosexuals, and he did it in Orlando just a couple of months ago. Gosh, you wonder who he inspired. But first, I want to share this with you. I think the weather has been rather pleasant the last couple of days, backed off from those high summer-like temperatures, but that doesn't mean we'll see another burst of that sometime soon, and for that reason, we'd like you to give a telephone call to the folks at Ramsey Heating and Electric, especially if you need some repairs done or just some maintenance so that you can keep things cool around the house throughout the summer. You can call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric and make sure the job is done right the first time and set yourself up for a great summer. You can see them at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley or give them a telephone call at 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. That's Ramsey Heating and Electric. I drove through Burley Saturday evening and disproves a caller's contention that Burley is the armpit of Idaho. Thought it was actually quite a nice town. 825, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. This has been unearthed by an organization called Western Journalism. It is an imam. This is a TV story from WFTV Channel 9 in Orlando from April. We're only talking a couple of months ago. And take a listen. This is a comment from an imam to a crowd while he was visiting there.
Death is the sentence. I mean, look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about this. Death is the sentence.
Here's a story you won't see anywhere else. A Muslim scholar says killing homosexuals is the compassionate thing to do. And he's just hours away from speaking at an Islamic center right here in Central Florida.
Wait a second. So he came just 2 months ago and he spoke and said it's a compassionate thing to do is to kill homosexuals to get them out of the way. Okay, this is what the guy said. Now, there may have been people who lived in the Orlando area of that particular religious faith who may have taken him up on this. But they're not mentioning it over at the Washington Post, Pravda on the Potomac, or the New York Times, or at CBS, NBC, ABC, MSDNC, or over at the Clinton News Network. Why not? The reporter who covered this story seemed almost stunned that this guy would say this in the year 2016.
He admits the Islamic death sentence applies in limited circumstances and is not applicable under U.S. law. But he also says the only way gays and lesbians can be forgiven is to die.
Well, we have to have that compassion for people. With homosexuals, the same. Out of compassion, let's get rid of him now.
Out of compassion, let's get rid of them now. So he says it, doesn't apply under U.S. law. On the other hand, well, probably knows if he was advocating that he wouldn't be allowed to visit here. But on the other hand, if you believe that Sharia is greater than U.S. law, which I assume that 99%, if you didn't see the story over the weekend, 99% of the immigrants coming here from Afghanistan, refugees maybe, believe that Sharia law has a place in the United States and that it trumps our laws. So, if you hear this guy speak and he says, well, U.S. law, you should probably follow that. But on the other hand, if you really do believe that Allah is God and you really want to win your place in heaven and your 72 virgins, go kill them. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX.
Yes. Well, one of the things that gets me is about all this is if you just go to YouTube and watch Late Great Planet Earth, Hal Lindsey's movie, The Late Great Planet Earth, and Jack Van Impe's The Coming War with Russia on YouTube, you'll realize that there's no point in trying to save this country. It's going to be destroyed anyway. We are going to be raptured soon. We have got to focus only on bringing people into the church.
I'm sure everyone agrees with you 100%, and they'll do it.
Well, it's a waste of time, and it's a complete nonsense to try to save this country.
Well, I'll go out and get a 12-pack and wait for it to arrive. How's that? Thank you. Just roll over and let Johnny Islam shoot you to death. That's the advice from that fellow. You're up next. You're on the air at 828.
Yes. Let me tell you something. I want this guy that just called in to go tell if he has children and grandchildren, tell him that. See, what's easy for him is not easy for the rest of the children and people of this country. We have a responsibility to hang in there and do our best. Christ may not come back for 50 to 100 years. And in some people's mind, there may not even be a Christ. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. But see, that's just my belief. So, you see, when my children ask me, where's my American dream, Dad? Because I'm always funneling talk radio down their throat. And they say, well, geez, it sounds terrible, especially if you listen to Glenn Beck, which I have quit doing. But you see, the thing of it is if there's a God and he says, I blessed you with freedom, I blessed you with the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and everything you could possibly need, and you chose to ignore it and wait on your dead ass for something to happen, we have a responsibility, people, to save our country. Yes, am I pissed off? I'm pissed off completely. I'm scared
I got to run.
Death.
But hey, thank you for the call. Wonderful call. During my college years, I had a Bible professor who used to repeat that phrase from World War II. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. I have an email here, and it comes from Larry Bailing. Larry Bailing is the CEO of Bailing Apple Farms. Those folks of you in the apple industry would recognize the name. It's one of the bigger outfits in the country. Larry is also a Vietnam veteran. Larry's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. He went to college, actually, with some friends way, way back that I know, he used to work with. He's also, in his county, he is the commander of his county American Legion. And he writes me this morning and says, think we need to start dropping some bombs on the terrorists overseas. Forget the collateral damage. War is hell. For everyone they kill here, we should take out 1,000 of them. I think they might get the idea then not to kill an American. He says, just 2 cents today. And he said, need to start packing heat again. That from Larry Bailing, CEO of Bailing Apple Farms, dropping me an email this morning during the course of our program. Of course, the Christians, the notion is that we should all sit back, according to the leftist media, and just get smacked in the face. What do you think, God, when Joshua was leading the Israelites to the promised land, God said, just go in there and wipe these people out, because otherwise they're going to be cultural pollution. Get rid of them. Wipe them all out. There was a reason for that. 8:35, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 59. Randy Staples will be joining us in just a few minutes from Idaho Weekly Briefing for his weekly visit. But first, I wanted to share this from the Daily Caller. Several American Civil Liberties Union attorneys took to Twitter to blame the, quote, Christian right, unquote, for Sunday's deadly terrorist attack at a nightclub in Orlando, Florida, which left 50 dead and 53 injured. Now, again, those numbers keep, moving back and forth a bit, but it's the worst shooting ever, worst mass murder ever in the United States. Chase Strangio, well, there's a name that fits, a staff attorney with the ACLU's LGBT and AIDS project, claimed the social and political environment cultivated by Christian conservatives in recent months was to blame for the shooting at Pulse. Strangio also called for solidarity between American Muslims and LGBT communities, arguing both are maligned and oppressed by the religious right. You got to be kidding me. These Muslims are out there looking to kill homosexuals, and these people, these liberals, still keep saying, well, gosh, we've got so much in common with them. You want to talk about useful idiots in the old Soviet definition of useful idiots? There you go. 8:36. We have a caller with us on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. You're on Top Story.
Good morning. I have something to say about the one caller that said that nothing matters and just prepare for the rapture. I don't know. That just feels so wrong to me. I think that everybody that's born in this time was born and put here for a reason, and it's because we have a responsibility to stand up for what we believe in. I don't see any scriptural proof that we're going to be taken up before bad things start to happen. In fact, bad things are already starting to happen. I think it's our responsibility, just like it was our founding fathers' responsibility, to stand up for what is right. And I think if you're sitting around waiting for, for some miracle to take us away from all this, I think you're dreaming. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I think we have a responsibility and a duty to follow Christ and to be the best people we can be at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for the call. I saw where Billy Graham's daughter was saying the other day that, the end times may be near. They may be. But how do you define near? As a previous caller said, we could be talking 50, 100 years. You could be talking 1,000 years. You don't know. A meteorite could be streaming through, or meteor through the galaxy right now that will be our end. We have all of these other possibilities. But for now, what are you doing and what are you making of your own life? And growing up as a kid, and I don't mean to sound biased, but I do not believe that all cultures are equal. I do not believe that you can often blend cultures. I do not believe that you can have that Tower of Babel going on. I'm a firm believer that the culture that I grew up in, that wonderful small town culture where we would go swimming on hot summer days, and my parents taught me the value of the sacrifices made by people before me, and we grew up respecting that. I think that is a culture worth defending. And if you don't, I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you don't, then you're obviously playing for the other team. The other team is the American left in league with these Muslim immigrants who are coming here to destroy us, in league with all sorts of nefarious people all over the world looking to destroy us. And the question is, why do they have such a great interest in destroying us? Well, we're a thorn in their plans, and their plans are not always good plans for us. And I think there are things worth defending in American culture and our way of life. And unfortunately, we have been teaching people otherwise for the last 50 years. It's time to get us back on the rails. And I can tell you right now, if we had, right after September 11th, 15 years ago, gone all Curtis LeMay on these people, we wouldn't have this worry today. Randy Staples is scheduled to join us from Idaho Weekly Briefing in just a few minutes. It's 8:40. Bill Colley with you on Top Story today on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com.